What's going on, everybody? This is dkdynamite, and tonight we're going to be talking about a really interesting report about Season 3, a Black Ops 6 cosmetic filter, and some other secrets. Definitely stay tuned. But as you guys are probably aware, in the event tab as of today, you can now see the Black Ops Tribute event, which is set to start later this Thursday on April 17th. I'll, of course, be live on the channel doing open lobbies, completing it as fast as possible, and showcasing a bunch of the brand new gameplay rewards. But other than that, as I discussed in my stream earlier today, we should be looking at what could be some marketing for the mid-season 3 update, which could drop later this week, if again the release is going to be on April the 24th, not to mention a bunch of the 420 content, which could just be dropped into the game any day now. They also mentioned that Demolition for multiplayer and the Team Crank mode for zombies should be launching during the launch window, so I do believe the rest of this week is going to be pretty busy. But as of earlier this afternoon, Treyarch dropped another surprise playlist into multiplayer that wasn't previously announced. This is Chaos Nuketown, as you guys will see some gameplay of. At first I thought it was just endurance for 6v6, but no, it's actually 10v10 Nuketown with a increased score and time limit, as you will see here. So plenty of opportunities for big streaks, for nukes, and maybe even 200 plus kill games if you get into the right lobby, of course. Now, it was an absolute hectic match, as you'll see in the background, but I'll try to make sure that I get as many gameplays as I can while this playlist is still active. Like I've said before, I'm a huge fan of when Treyarch just adds in some random wacky playlists that weren't previously announced on a roadmap or anything. Now, I also want to remind you that just a few days back, as I made a short on, the Terminator operator skin did finally get an update. Now, there's plenty of jokes going around that all bro did was really just step back. There really weren't enough updates applied to this operator skin, in my opinion. I think you could definitely see some visibility improvements on some of the brighter and lit multiplayer maps, but the skin could still use some work. Now, what I want to say is, I've really never seen so many people asking for another operator, or a crossover skin for that matter, to be added back into the item shop, probably because of the weird advantage that this skin was giving people. Although Exclusive Ace did debunk that this skin had a different hitbox from other operator skins, there certainly were advantages to where you just couldn't see this skin in certain areas in multiplayer and even zombies. But then again, it's always ironic to see comments from people suggesting that nobody cares about cosmetics when I see comments every day, not just even on my own content, but everywhere on the internet asking when certain bundle release dates are, or if a certain skin's getting added back in, or why a certain bundle was broken when somebody bought it. There's an audience for it. Even if my bundle locker is pretty small, I still acknowledge that there is some interest for bundles out there, and that's why I do talk about them every so often, maybe a couple of times per season. Now, jumping into the good stuff, there was a report that came out following the launch of Season 3 from insider The Ghost of Hope. Now, as I've said before, don't think everything he says is gospel, but it's always worth considering the information that he's presented because he's been accurate about a number of reports quite a few times now in the last year, so it's always fun to have a discussion about this. But as he wrote, Activision and Raven are excited with the numbers they've seen for players returning and playing Warzone after the launch of Verdansk. The update has exceeded expectations, whereas Xbox Game Pass and PlayStation Store numbers are, and I quote, off the charts compared to what they were. They have even seen an uplift in BO6 sales and downloads because of the update. Now, I get it. You can look at trends of the Steam charts and say, wait, there's a bit of a drop-off, which might also reflect other platforms, but either way, who cares? Play the game if you're enjoying it. Don't play it if you're not, and I'm sure there'll always be spikes every time a brand new major content drop does end up releasing, and that's how it goes for any live service game, really. But the bigger part of this report was the second half here, where he says that they are talking about showing more restraint with Warzone for skins and bundles and even microtransactions. Crossovers are, and I quote, printing money, but they hear the criticism that the game is starting to look stupid. So when I first saw this report, I was like, okay, let's think about this for a second, right? If crossovers are printing money and the wacky skins are selling better than any milsim tactical outfits, nothing is likely going to change, but would it really hurt if they somehow release some type of toggle to where you can disable the ability to actually see other people's skins, and maybe all you can see could be the default or some of the more tactical operators? Now, I know that could be a stretch because realistically, wouldn't Activision and the higher-ups want you to see some of the flashier and wacky skins while you're playing, which could encourage you to then spend money in the item shop? I mean, it's a business, right? And that's what we can all expect when thinking about this, but honestly, the technology for turning off the ability to see wacky skins kind of already exists. If you think about it, as you guys may have seen in the past, if somebody were to bring in a platform-specific operator that did not exist on the platform that you're playing on, you would actually see a default operator in place of whatever character somebody's playing as. For example, the PS combat pack operators. If you weren't playing on a PlayStation, you wouldn't be able to see any enemies running that skin. Instead, if you were on Xbox and PC, you would see one of those Milsim tactical default skins in place of, let's say, the Oni operator that released back during Modern Warfare. So would it be possible to maybe have a feature like that integrated into the base game of BO6 or just Warzone? Would that even be possible? I mean, funny enough, Fajardi made a concept image for Detonated where he actually presented this idea to the Twitter audience, and I know the image has kind of been floating around and is almost being taken as fact, but I can promise you it's just a concept image about an idea. In no way, shape, or form has this feature been rumored, nor has it leaked in any way. Now, there's also concept in tonight's thumbnail of what that feature that I just mentioned could look like, and personally, if you guys want my 2 cents, I don't think this feature is ever going to be added into Call of Duty, but also never say never. Now, in an interview that IGN did with Raven, the information about the interview was published just earlier today. Some details were shared on the studio's thoughts about various cosmetics. So, Raven did tell IGN that apparently they do not intend to restrict crazy skins over in Warzone. Before I continue with their statement, I do want to say this is Raven talking about Warzone, but obviously Activision or Microsoft would have the final say. Who's to say, though, that maybe somebody at Treyarch or maybe even Infinity Ward with MW4 can't pitch to Activision, hey, can we have this toggle in our game? Maybe Raven feels a certain way about this for Warzone that doesn't necessarily have to apply to the base premium games that are obviously made by other studios. So this could just be the opinion of one group here, which is Raven. The quote is, part of that was respecting players' purchases. We could have restricted weapons and operators, but then it creates this big friction moment for players. I know some players might have more of a stance on it, like, and I quote, I want it to be pure Milsim, but the spirit has to make it welcoming for all players. Now, I'm not really surprised by this response, to be honest with you, but either way, I think when it comes to vaulting content, we're probably going to end up seeing Modern Warfare weaponry and content vaulted for maybe the Black Ops 7 or MW4 integration. Can't really picture more than 3 to 4 games being integrated with one Warzone at once, but things will change, and I'll of course make a separate video on that. But this has me thinking if whether or not we'll end up seeing some type of shift one day where Warzone truly does become its own entity. I mean, we're kind of seeing that right now with the return to OG Verdansk. We have some classic features and even a movement overhaul that doesn't apply to Black Ops 6. If Warzone continues drifting off kind of onto its own island, even with integrating with new Call of Duty's weaponry or operators every year, I'd be curious to see if this toggle feature for cosmetics could apply to, like I said earlier, either or, maybe not both, maybe just the premium game or just into Warzone. I mean, look at what they also did with the launch of Season 3. 2 free operator skins that you can only run while playing Warzone. For some reason, you can't bring them into BO6. And look at the John Black Ops Redacted skin. You can only get that skin through the Tribute event if you own the base game, if you want to go ahead and bring it into other game modes like Warzone. So we're already seeing some very odd decisions made with cosmetics, and maybe a big overhaul is overdue for the way that operator skins are visible for most people's games. But at the end of the day, I get it, it's a first-person shooter, people feel differently about this, everyone's entitled to their own opinion, but some folks may look at this and say, hey, I just see an enemy, I shoot, I kill, I get my stuff done, and I move on. Other folks may feel strongly about whether or not they want to see certain flashy, goofy, and bright operators in a game that is focused on the 90s and the Gulf War. Now, I do believe that third person being introduced in the multiplayer, I know it was already in zombies, but the fact that third person got its own playlist in MP kind of offered more value for some of the skins out there. Just another opportunity to actually look at them while you're playing, because most of the time you're probably not going to see the skin anyway. Now, as far as anything else that may have been substantial from the IGN interview, here's what was said. So the interviewer did ask Raven how long Verdansk would remain live in current Warzone, and this was the response. So for the time being, Verdansk is sticking around, and this is just the beginning of the Verdansk 2025 journey, and then we'll see how things go from there. Personally, I don't think the map is going to get vaulted or replaced by a different BR map. I think maybe technology could be put in place for a BR map rotation, maybe not a giant BR map alongside Verdansk, but at least something, let's say on the same scale as Vandal from MW2, where the map could support both BR and Resurgence. You could have that plus OG Verdansk alongside whatever that map is. We'll love to see Avalon that was supposed to release at some point, but maybe that's being saved for a different purpose altogether. And lastly, Raven also mentioned that they're going to be evaluating the Battle Royale casual playlist to ensure that sweats don't end up ruining the mode. As I said, it's pretty new right now, but we will see if sweats come in and start wrecking the whole server. Then we'll have to come up with plans against that. Not sure what those plans could really be apart from removing the playlist altogether, which I hope they don't, because this is a big step in the right direction for the Abyss camo grind. But maybe just continuing to introduce more and more playlists that can sit alongside the existing ones, like let's say Lockdown Resurgence. That could be a mode that could attract more sweats than Battle Royale Casual. But either way, I don't think they'll ever restrict people by saying, hey, you can only play Battle Royale Casual if you have a certain amount of playtime this season, or if you're a certain ranked. I'm sure things are going to end up being fine, and the mode itself will probably just become a bigger camo simulator than Plunder ever was. But that is about it. This has been dkdynamite. Leave your thoughts down below in the comment section. What are your thoughts on the possibility of a cosmetic filter? Do you guys think Raven kind of spoke for all studios and that one is not going to happen? Leave your thoughts down below in the IGN interview. Really hope you've enjoyed, and peace out, everybody.